Welcome to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. Today, let's talk about measured reactions. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kale Houser Leadership Secrets podcast. My name is Kale Houser. Thank you for joining me today. I want to discuss this idea, this concept, this attitude of having measured reactions to situations and events that happen in your life, and why this is important to you as a leader, to you as whether you're a business leader, owner, department head, manager, whatever that is. If you've got people that are around you that look to you for some aspect of their community or organization in that leadership role, then I want to get you thinking about how you react to situations. Now, on one hand, you've got stressful situations, and sometimes those deserve a certain type of reaction. And on the other hand, I'm also considering like the joyous situations, the really exciting situations that are like happy moments, those things that get us pumped up and excited, landing a brand new client that you've been working on forever, you finally like get that, handshake and the signed paperwork hits your inbox, right? Those moments of like, yes, you're just super excited because it's exciting and it's a success. And how you react to those situations, because people tend to, that have strong reactions, they react strongly to both sides of the fence. When something goes wrong, they react strongly to that thing going wrong. When something goes right, they react strongly to that thing going right in the appropriate manner. Or are you more like a poker player? That's kind of the classic stereotype of, you got to put on your poker face, right? Because you never want your opponents to know. Do you have a losing hand? Are you bluffing? Or do you have a winning hand and you're trying to trap and get all their money? Is that you? You show like no emotion or very little emotion, and it's just kind of like whatever, no big deal. A lot of poker players, if you follow poker at all, some of them take this to the extreme. They're like, yeah, whatever happens, it happens. They're literally there just playing the numbers and the odds, and if their aces win or lose, it's no big deal. And then other poker players, they're like, I can't believe you called with that garbage, and they, somebody's 7-10 beat their pocket aces, and they just absolutely flip out. There's like, if you're in the poker world, like Phil Hellmuth is known for this, of just going absolutely nuts crazy when people quote unquote make bad plays against him, and the deck does not reward his good play type of thing. But we can easily do this in our business place, because you can be that opposite end of jumping around, exciting, and woohoo, and you have this emotional high, and you just can't help but this big outburst, but in the positive, to where you're literally running around high-fiving, you're running around doing all this stuff, and it's maybe kind of out of character for you. But on the opposite end, if you lose that client, or some mistake becomes apparent, or you find out you're getting audited, whatever that is, some negative thing is happening, and you're the one that's like, the red, you just see it goes through them, or they, grab the chair and they chuck it across the hall or down the hall, kind of because they're not able to control their emotions and that outward response to whatever is happening and affecting them. It's not measured. And I would argue that in business, there is absolutely something to be said to having measured responses to those types of situations. Because in business, you get the whole gambit, the whole spectrum of things happening to your businesses, successes and losses, wins and failures, right? You see that. And then how you react and what you show and how you react to your people, especially when you've got a team, and the larger the team, the more exasperated this is, because you've got different opinions being formed of you on both ends. It becomes potentially a real issue and something you need to be aware of. So now, I'm not saying by any stretch that you can't show emotion, right? That is not healthy whatsoever. I am saying you need to be a little more measured in your response to these types of situations, both the positive and the negative. High fives are awesome. Yes, it is a great way to create connection and communication, and kind of it's a lighthearted way to like, hey, good job, Jess, boom, they give that high five, again, if that's appropriate for your workplace. What's not appropriate, and even, getting mad can be appropriate. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, such and such, this just happened, or, whatever that situation is. But once you moved out of that measured response, that what is considered like culturally appropriate or socially appropriate in your response on either end, because I will say, we've kind of all been witness to the crazy person that's like just super excited, and maybe they're running down the street, they've taken their shirt off. Like think of a sporting event, one of those super fans that just go absolutely nuts. Like that person is not trustworthy. You look at them and you understand, like, yeah, they're excited, their team just won or whatever, but they've gone kind of off the deep end in their response to it. And then the same thing when somebody goes off the deep end in their negative response and they're like literally punching walls through or punching holes through the drywall or chucking a chair out or smashing, slamming their fist, whatever. We kind of look at that person and go, okay, that's a little extreme. And as the leader, as somebody that is in charge and but one of the main points of creating the culture in your workplace and what is acceptable behavior and not acceptable behavior, you need to be cautious of this, because outbursts, both positive and negative, right? The screaming at the top of your lungs, or even the loud yahoos and running down the streets, kind of response in your workplace can lend this overall feeling to your team members that are observing this and are not necessarily partaking in it, but they're a part of it in some form or fashion. It can be absolutely unnerving in the point where it creates maybe a little instability. It can create more of an attitude of cautiousness, because especially if this is kind of out of the norm for the situation or for your culture, it can create a little bit of barrier and caution as people are trying to, gauge what may or may not be your response to either good or bad news that they may be giving you. And then overall, in kind of worst case scenarios, it can lead to an absolute lack of trust in you. And it's, maybe you're saying, okay, that's a little extreme and that doesn't happen, but I'm not talking about one, and maybe even I am, but talking about like these one-off instances, but you're doing things by your extreme responses to these situations you're creating this culture of potentially, especially on the negative end, this instability. Like, is this guy off his rocker? We don't know how he's going to react to this business. We've all seen, these situations, or even maybe been in these situations where you're discussing with your coworker, like, yeah, we got to tell boss Jeff over there. He's like, I don't know what he's going to do. Like, he could absolutely flip out and fire us, right? You just don't know, because that boss Jeff has earned that reputation of being a little unstable, and it creates that instability. And then even on the flip side, when you have those calm and measured responses, it implies a coolness, right? It implies a thoughtfulness that in these various situations, good and bad, you take the time to process, and you're thoughtful in your process of it. And it implies control, that you're not ruled by your emotions. Because, as Brandon Dawson, one of my mentors, always says, high emotion equals low intelligence. So as you're like whooping and hollering, running down the street, waving your jersey because your favorite team won, or whatever the equivalent of that is in your business, you lose that intelligence of, I'm running down the street with traffic, but I'm just so excited, I'm disregarding that I could get hit by a car. Or on the other end, I'm so furious that I don't even see, that as I pick up my chair to throw, Karen happened to be walking by and it just absolutely smashes her in the head, and you create this massive mistake because, again, high emotion equals low intelligence. You didn't think through the problem. On the other hand, that control is measured when you're like, oh man, that totally sucks that happened. Team, what can we do about this? Why? Let's analyze this. Meet in my office in 10 minutes. Let's gather some data and figure out what caused this failure, or what caused this, and get that feedback going. Or even like, holy smokes, we just had this amazing one. Hey, everybody, client XYZ just signed our year contract for our program, and we just met our targets for the quarter for our revenue challenge, our revenue challenge that we were doing. And you create this like, hey, meet in the break room in 10 minutes, and have this kind of little bit of a celebration, but it's not the extreme, like everyone's ripping their, you know what I'm talking about. So as you're going through this and you can think back into situations where you've been in these, how has your response been, and what is it communicating to your teams? What is it communicating to your clients? What is it communicating to your vendors and customers? Because it is communicating something. Whether it is a calm, collected coolness, or it's a little bit freaky, unstable, unknown reaction, and like, okay, maybe I should take my business elsewhere type of reaction, because that's absolutely a contributing factor to how you are viewed in the marketplace, especially if you're a smaller business where you kind of have maybe one figurehead, one face of your business. And this can go even beyond into, your social media and how you're seen in your community, how you act on the local, church league softball team. Are you the one that's smashing their bat against the home plate when they strike out, or are you the one screaming at the ump? That type of reactions and things, or are you the one that's like, oh, good pitch, or like, hey, great game, everybody, and you're out there kind of being a little bit more measured in your response and your reactions to those types of situations where people observe you. Because people are observing you, right? That is a common theme of this podcast, is helping you become more aware that people are observing you. You are the leader. You are the one that people look to provide guidance and direction and culture and everything else that has to do with your business. So be cautious of that. Does that make sense? I would love to hear if you have an example of like, man, I just lost my cool this day and this is what happened and it wasn't good and I vowed to never do that again. Or, we went on this massive celebration and, XYZ happened or something. That would be kind of cool to be able to hear about. So please drop a comment or shoot me an email, kale@kalehouserleadership.com. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you are having a fantastic afternoon, no matter where you're at in the world. Bye.